but we get to know the founders really well. And that's our difference, is that we're very community focused. And so we really are backing exceptional founders more than anything else.
Hello and welcome to the Biz Dev Podcast, the podcast about developing your business. I'm your substitute host for today, Gary Voigt, but I'm not alone. I'm also joined by a very special guest. Please welcome to the show, Jenn Summe. Now, Jenn is a partner in Primodial, which is a VC firm that invests in early stage startups. Thank you for joining us today, Jenn.
Thank you for having me.
Now, as people might know, if they listen to this podcast, I'm not the smartest when it comes to investments. I kind of know a little bit, but it is interesting to me. So if you can just kind of give us the broad perspective of what Primodial does and what your role there is.
Sure. Functionally, I just manage all of the day-to-day activities at Primodial. And what we do is invest in early stage tech startups based in North Carolina. So very promising, but either pre-seed or seed stage companies that are trying to work their way from zero to their first million. Based anywhere in North Carolina. We used to be just restricted to the Triangle, but we opened up recently to the whole state. So our last investment was actually a Charlotte-based company, and we're looking at the coast and the mountains and everywhere within North Carolina. We believe there's a lot of great companies here and exceptional founders, and we're trying to help them get to their first million, seed stage, and beyond.
Now, have you noticed recently the environment for investments and investment firms going into more startups becoming a little bit more, I wouldn't say popular because it was popular in the past, but do you see that energy and that growth coming back? Because I know it was stalled for quite a while after the pandemic, stuff like that.
Yeah, there was a landmark year in 2021. There was a bit of a boom, and there was a lot of free-flowing cash and capital and really high valuations. After the initial shock of COVID, there was a lot of opportunity, everybody going online. And so there were a lot of great companies that could be great investments in 2021. A lot of those companies have survived. Some of them haven't. So there was a bit of a freeze that occurred in 2022, particularly in 2023. Last year was a really tough year for founders if they were trying to fundraise. There were a lot of VC firms that had kind of closed their checkbooks for a while and, weren't sure about generally the economy and if they were going to be able to, they weren't writing a lot of checks. And when they did, they were smaller than the ones they had written previously. But where we're focused is on the very early stages. And so usually our first check is more angel size. And so we've got a mandate at Primodial to always be deploying capital, whether it's an up market or a down market. Try to do one new investment a month, basically, with those early stage angel size checks, and then reserve more capital to follow the companies that continue to do well.
Now, do you guys have like a playbook you follow for your involvement in the companies that you invest in? Or do you just have a list of services that you can provide on top of the check?
Yeah, we do have a lot of value add services. We like to position ourselves as smart money rather than just money. So even though it's not a huge check, we try to layer on a lot of marketing and mentorship support for our portfolio companies. And so what that functionally looks like is meeting with them on a regular basis. We meet with our founders monthly, help them with anything from pricing strategies to connections to other capital resources, help them do data room audits as they're preparing for their next round of fundraising, all sorts of different ways. And then generally just overall check on the health of their business on a regular basis and get to know them a little bit better, and like a deeper diligence period, basically. And then for marketing, we're a sister organization with GretBeat, which covers all things Triangle Tech news, and recently expanded to Wilmington. So they're also at the beach now too. And so we can leverage that relationship well for our portfolio companies that can show up on our podcasts. All of them, of course, get profiles in GretBeat, though we don't have to invest in a company for me to make that connection to the GretBeat folks. If you ever see me at a happy hour, you can always find me and I'll point you in the direction of the GretBeat team for a profile for new founders.
Yeah, recently we've had a couple of guests that were they were part agency, part investment. So they did have services that they would offer. They'd write the angel checks, but then also kind of say, okay, but we also have a marketing firm and even some development that we can take care of for you. So I was just curious to see if you guys had any of that in-house, or if your network has a group that you typically kind of recommend to some of these newer startups. Because you said you're getting in like early stage startups.
Yeah.
Is the process basically just you're on the hunt for someone with a great idea that doesn't even have a market fit yet? Or do they already have a market fit, just not gaining any kind of
Yeah, they're usually
traction with
past
it?
the idea stage. They usually have some sort of MVP or early version of a product that they can start to go to market with. They probably don't have product market fit yet. They might
Okay.
have early indicators of it, but usually they haven't landed on PMF yet. But we do have a list of preferred vendors that we know and have good recommendations from our founders and other folks in our network that we kind of just put forward to our founders if they ever need those sorts of services, because it's really a partnership. And so it's not, if we had one vendor, it'd be fine for sending it along. You might want a different type of relationship with your development team, or maybe you're a different, want this type of attorney versus this type of attorney. Try to have a good list to show people.
Do you keep your
when they
vendors
join.
and partners list within the same general Raleigh area, North Carolina area?
North Carolina, mostly. Some of the firms on there are national, but they have a big presence here. And so they have actual
Okay.
people who live here that they can connect with in person.
The idea that you're kind of you're growing the tech community within that area along with your partnerships and networking as well. You're not outsourcing things too far away.
And we also have hiring and recruiting services in-house. So Melissa Crosby, who's on our team at Colby Ventures, which is the umbrella organization, basically, she does all hiring and recruiting she offers hiring and recruiting for all of our portfolio companies, which saves them a lot of valuable time sifting through thousands and thousands of resumes. It's a valuable service for early stage founders.
Now, when did you mention like an umbrella company, or are you guys just a small portion of a larger company? If so, when did Primodial actually start?
Great question. Here's the short history. So Joe Colopy is my partner at Primordial. He co-founded Bronto Software back in the early 2000s, led it to a very large exit to NetSuite, started Colopy Ventures as his family office. Out of that runs Gretbeat, which is part of his give back to the community that helped him, supported him when they were growing Bronto. And so Gretbeat is the news angle and altruistic angle, I'll say. After that, he started Jurassic Capital with Kevin Mosley, which is a $30 million early growth stage fund. It also operates here out of Durham. And that's kind of like its own little pocket, but it's a sister organization to Gretbeat. And then Primordial was started in February of 2023 when I joined.
So Primordial,
just to focus on a
Jurassic,
different stage.
Is there a theme?
And Bronto, yeah.
Oh,
Joe likes dinosaurs, so he couldn't tell.
I thought maybe he was just a big Flintstones fan, for anybody as old as I am out there.
It's possible. I'll ask him.
Okay. No, Primordial is a really cool name, though. I saw that and I liked it a lot. Little side note, I did some branding for a personal trainer starting a gym, and his training solution was called Primordial. So same name, but very different audience and very different look and style. But
very different.
I always liked the name. Pretty cool.
But hopefully things is kind of what we were going for, is like the early building blocks.
You started in 2023, and you said the startup investment, I guess you could say energy, is kind of growing again. Do you see this impacting like a lot of bigger investment groups coming to the area, or at least raising an interest in the area? Or do you see a lot of the smaller like investment companies and agency investment companies just kind of lurking around and trying to find good ideas and new businesses to invest in?
I think a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. The goal is really to make sure that these good companies don't run out of capital and have good partners that can help them and are invested in seeing them succeed. And so I think for the later stage investment folks that maybe are either here or outside of this region, getting kind of early access to deals is part of our fundraising strategy, since we invest usually when other firms find these companies maybe too risky, or they don't have a proven financial or revenue model yet. They just have an idea of one. A later stage firm may not want to invest, but we get to know the founders really well, and that's our difference, is that we're very community focused, and so we really are backing exceptional founders more than anything else. And we believe whether if they have a good business idea, they might pivot in a few months and find an even better business idea. But either way, this team is the one that's going to make something work. And so one of the reasons that people might join Primordial as an investor is to see some of these early deals as they're still young, pivoting, finding product market fit. And then once they've hit a stride and made a significant amount of revenue, then it might be a good time for them to get involved as a potential investor. So that works for later stage. But it's also additive to the community because we're not writing checks that are filling an entire pre-seed or seed round. We're collaborating with other capital providers to pull together and support these organizations that have high potential. A 25 or 50K check isn't gonna do much for a company's bottom line, But if you pull enough of them together and you have another partner who can come in for 150K, then all of a sudden you have a whole pre-seed round filled.
And like you said, if you're pulling in from multiple different, investment groups or companies that are all within the same, at least localized area or the same network, that's, to me, in my opinion, that's much cooler than like some giant investment firm from New York or San Francisco or whatever coming in and just kind of chomping a big hole into the tech economy in the area and then just devouring it up
Exactly. And it's nice to have local support too, even if you're going to go primarily, like you're going to find a lead outside of this area. I won't say it's a red flag, but it's a little bit interesting, if there's someone from Silicon Valley or New York who's going to be a lead investor in a company based here, and they don't have any investors in this area. The question there is, why is nobody from your community supporting you? Because we do have a good community here. So it's good to have those local investors on your table as well.
So if I'm a business owner and I'm looking into finding people to invest in my company, local companies to invest in my idea or my startup, give me an idea of what kind of, I know you said tech companies, early stage tech companies, but can you give me an idea of what specific type of business models, or at least what kind of industries or, what ideas you've come across lately that have got you excited?
Yeah, it's a variety. I'll say that because we're so geographically focused, we try to keep things pretty broad as far as business models and industries. So we do have investments in companies in MarTech and restaurant tech and health tech. We have B2B models, B2C models. I will say it's mostly software. We have one company in the portfolio that has a software solution with a hardware component that gathers data. That's kind of the only one that has a dual play, but mostly focused on software, traditionally because they have higher margins and usually they're easier businesses to scale.
Software aimed at what particular kind of problem to solve?
All sorts of things. We've got climate tech, we've got med tech. Actually, there's quite a lot of healthcare technologies in our portfolio. I think there's just a lot of room for innovation and disruption in that market. It's a big market, and there's a lot of legacy systems and legacy processes that can be made easier with a technology application.
So 3 months ago, I would have expected that answer to be all AI-focused companies, because that seemed to be the only thing people were interested in about 3-4 months ago. AI this, AI that. But it seems like now the AI magic is kind of starting to sparkle away. Or
it's just the difference.
It's found its place for now, and I think people are seeing it more of a tool instead of a shiny object to sell everybody else. So
I think that's what it is. It's every company should be using AI in some capacity. And so how are you implementing AI within climate tech, within legal tech, within health tech? All of the companies that I was just thinking of have an AI component, but they don't lead with the AI message. It's just something that makes their solution better and more efficient.
We were on a run there for a while where every guest we had on the show was something bright and shiny with AI. And it was either your personal assistant or your digital avatar doing your job for you, or they're going to answer your emails, they're going to have your conversations, they're going to network for you, this and that. And it got to a point where we were just like, we'll see how this goes. And surprisingly, it didn't really go that far.
Big Pixel builds world-class custom software and amazing apps. Our team of pros puts passion into every one of our projects. Our design-infused development leans heavily on delivering a great experience for our clients and their clients. From startups to enterprises, we can help craft your ideas into real-world products that help your business do better business.
do you enjoy the multiple different types of businesses, industries, and ideas? Or like you
Yeah,
said,
actually,
do you like focusing on the actual role that you play and, those steps over and over? Or do you like actually learning the different sides of, like you said, a med tech versus maybe an agricultural
I
company?
actually really love that. I love the variety that we get. I feel like I'm always learning. That was the one thing I really enjoyed about my job at the digital marketing agency is that I was working with, and so I had to learn quickly, what the market looked like, who were the competitors, who are the players in the different industries that I'm working with. And that's something that I had been missing since getting into individual startups and having a singularly focused role. And so that variety and that push to always be learning is now
Yeah, that's
definitely fulfilled.
I ask because that's something I could totally relate to. That's kind of what drives not just me, but like us at Big Pixel, the people behind this podcast. We're a
Mhm.
custom software design and development firm. And one of our main focuses, like everybody in the company loves the idea of we're not just doing the same thing for the same
Yeah.
type of business. We might be doing the same type of thing, building software, whatever, but so many different types of business and industry that we're constantly learning and trying to figure out what's next for them and helping them with strategy as well as the design. Yeah, I assumed in a role like yours in an investment company in the tech startup phase, you would have just multiple different ideas to look at and say, wow, that seems really cool. That seems really interesting. Regardless, they might not be the safest bet, but that's something I want to really try to dive into and explore and see if we can help with. Have you had, a handful of those that are just like out of nowhere exciting ideas that you just wanted to go for?
Yeah, there's one recent investment that we made into a company called Roboro. Amazing team. Just absolutely amazing team. I love every single one of those founders. And they're just incredibly seasoned and incredibly smart. But they're innovating in a place that is like not only impact driven, but there's a real revenue model there and that's information that people want. So what they do is they're demystifying the entire legislative process. So you can imagine even in North Carolina, there's all of this publicly available information about, the session notes when the state legislature meets and discusses bills that are currently in the works. And so they're taking all of this publicly available information, which is incredibly fragmented. I don't know if you've ever been to our government's website and tried to figure out information about anything, but it's really hard to navigate.
Yeah, the weird thing is it's everything you would ever want to know is all there,
Yeah,
but it's just
it's all
never
there.
anywhere that you could put together unless you're spending hours and hours trying to piecemeal the stuff together. But
Yeah, and you
if they
cannot
found a way to
easily.
kind of expose the recipes and ingredients in like one simple place to
Yeah,
fight.
what they've done basically is put all of this information together, and they've added a layer of like sentiment analysis on top of it too. So they're digesting all this information, ingesting all this information, and summarizing it for you. And so
Getting it
what you
back in
can
an easy to
do,
understand, consumable kind of
yes,
way. Nice.
yes. And so what you can do as like a law firm or a lobbyist or a special interest group, you can go on to their platform, put in the issues that you care about. So if you care about, like marijuana or whatever, and there's a bill currently going through the legislature that references THC, but not marijuana, like a normal filter wouldn't catch that, but theirs will because it's got this sentiment analysis. And you'll get real like live updates about bills that haven't passed yet, but are still being worked through. And so you can track it, see when there's live updates, see when there's another session talking about it, see when it moves forward. They're mapping out who the different players are, who are supporting and sponsoring those bills. And it's really interesting. Again, heavy AI component, but they don't really lead with that much. It's more about
It seems like
demystifying
it's
this entire
building
process.
an accessible layer of transparency
Mhm.
for people that are interested in learning more about that, which is, I think, it's interesting, and maybe people will start paying closer attention.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's really cool. So in your short time, not your short time, but in Primordial's short time, I don't know have you had any like wins or losses of recognition or made you kind of think twice and reevaluate, or just say all gas from now on? That was incredible.
We haven't had any like traditional wins or any exits or anything like that yet because we're investing at a very early stage
Right.
and we've only been around for a year and a half. Still early in that process. I think we're close to it. There has been conversations in the office about adding another person on the Primodial team sometime next year. So those are still active discussions. But I think with the group that we have here in the office, so all of those brands that I mentioned earlier with Gretbeat and Jurassic and Primordial, we all share one office. So we have a lot of
Yeah.
shared resources amongst us. And so there's a lot of folks who kind of span all the different brands. And so the team is larger than just those that have Primordial on their LinkedIn, because I think that's just me and Joe, honestly. But there is definitely a group of people here that are helpful and supportive.
It seems like you have your own little community. I guess from that would be, how do the small business owners, the startups, the entrepreneurs, how do they find you guys? Or are you actively looking for them? How do you guys connect with them? Is it just through networking events, or is there like processes where they're just applying to a bunch of different, investment groups? Or
Great question.
how do you find the right fit?
It's a lot of those things. It's all of those things, really. A lot of networking events, a lot of pitch contests, NC Ideas, finalists and grant winners for both micro and seed grant are usually really good opportunities for us to get connected with folks. They do a great job vetting some really good companies. Sometimes they're also Primordial fit. I think we have, I forget what the percentage is, but it's a large percentage of our portfolio are also grant winners. CED also, the team over there, the capital team, Hunter and Yash, are both really good about knowing our thesis really well and sending over opportunities. When they get connected with founders, they send them over to us if they're a good fit for our structure.
Okay, so you guys do have like active referrals to different
Yeah.
groups depending on the fit. Okay, good.
And then we also are just out there like talking to people, looking for opportunities. And you can always just reach out to us inbound from the website as well. I get all those emails.
You also mentioned earlier helping out in the collegiate level. Do you guys actively look for college networking groups and stuff like that?
Yeah. We try to keep good ties with all of the innovation and entrepreneurship functions at the universities in the area. And I'm actually going out. Well, I'm going tomorrow to Duke for a different thing, but I'm going out next week to Duke to talk to some
Our
student
typical
entrepreneurs.
host, David, the guy who's usually here, he does a lot of mentoring as he stayed for startups and business tech and stuff like that. So I'm sure you guys have run in the same circles. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
I don't know everybody's name, so I don't want to sound like a moron and start spitting out the wrong names here. But
yeah, no, Haley Huey over at NC State is also a great lead for us. She sends over opportunities whenever it makes sense. And I usually try to go out and at least do one session for the Andrews Launch Accelerator that they have. They're usually a good group of folks with real businesses coming out of it. So
I think there was another Raleigh founded, was it?
Mhm.
Raleigh founded.
Yeah. So I also have office hours at Raleigh Founded and American Underground. So those are both
Okay.
like co-working communities that cater to startups. And they have really great communities to tap into.
All right. If you were a small business owner or an entrepreneur in that area, besides trying to find Primordial, which I think is an easy thing to do now, they're everywhere. What advice do you have for them to be a successful entrepreneur or a new business? 3 pieces of advice that you would give a startup.
Okay. One, just following this thread that we're already on. Community is really important and support is really important. So find other founders to talk to. We're really big at Primordial about building founder community just within our portfolio companies. And so we have events for them and Slack groups for them to chat with each other and network and share horror stories sometimes. We have Raleigh Founded, we have American Underground. In Durham, we also have Durham Bundling Co. We've got a lot of different co-working spaces. If you're sales focused, you could go to Sales HQ. There's tons of co-working spaces that tap you into communities that can provide you support as you're founding a company, because it's really hard to get a company off the ground. And so the more people who you can talk to and lean on, the better. You'll be more successful if you have a good support group and community around you. 2, I say this a lot, and it's usually kind of counterintuitive for a VC to say this, but bootstrap for as long as possible, as long as humanly possible, for as long as you can. Build out your own personal runway, nights, weekends, side hustle work, whatever. Try to avoid taking outside capital for as long as you can. And that allows you to build a really solid business foundation and hopefully puts you in a position of power when you do go out to raise capital, because you already have a good business and you've already gotten it off the ground on your own. if that's within your power. And if you have to find financing, always look at the non-dilutive grant opportunities that we have available in the state, because there are a lot. I already mentioned NC IDEA, but there's way more than that. Just take a look and see if there are options that don't eat into your cap table to start out. You'll be in a better position, and you'll focus more on the things that matter early on, which is building a solid business foundation. And then three, what would I say for three? Gosh, 3 pieces is a lot of advice. Hopefully we can cut some of this dead time where I'm thinking.
No, we're going to extend it. Yeah.
Okay, just dive. 4 years later, she
Well,
thought of
while you're
something.
thinking, let me just touch on the bootstrapping as much as you can, or as far as you can. That's something we
Sure.
hear a lot, and we're kind of big believers in that as well, only because it's not that the goal of your startup should be to come up with an idea and then sell it immediately. If you're actually going to find success, you have to have some sort of stake in it. You have to have at least the passion in it. And the more that you could put into it yourself, even if it's borrowing money, friends, family, or something like that, and not becoming beholden to someone else to make decisions for you, at least at that point, you can give it a really live or die kind of try and see what's going to happen from there. But yeah, so I do believe that doing it as much as you can on your own is going to benefit you.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is our mentality, 100%. I mentioned Joe bootstrapped his company the entire way. He
And it's not
started
like
out
you need a
bootstrapping.
whole lot to
No,
get going. You just have to
you
prove your
don't.
idea, and you could prove your idea a lot of times. Just you don't need to build an app. Of course, eventually you might have to, or you might have to build software, but you could just do it with essentially a spreadsheet, pen, paper. Just see if you
Yeah.
connect customer to solution, and if it works, and then you go from there.
Yeah, you can come back behind and build like some scalable solution behind it, but it doesn't have to be scalable to start out. You just need to know if there's a market there that is
Yeah.
willing to pay money for what you have. So that's just the best piece of advice.
Your third and final has got to be good. It's got to be
Okay.
really good.
Third and final.
No
Oh,
pressure.
gosh. Pressure. So much pressure.
No, it could be something simple. Don't worry about it. Just something that, as long as it's not a sales pitch and it's something you truly believe, then that's beneficial to our listeners.
I think not a sales pitch for sure, because it kind of works me out of a job a little bit, is go learn everything you can about raising capital before you go do it. I recommend a book a lot. And this is not a sales pitch. I promise I do not
No,
get any
that's
money
fine.
from these people. I always recommend Venture Deals as a book that founders should read, or at least buy and reference. It's written by 2 founders. Basically the subtitle is Be Smarter Than Your Attorney and Your Venture Capitalist. And so it is a good primer about all things safes and convertible notes and equity financing, non-dilutive options, what that does to your cap table later on, and dilution and liquidation preferences. All these super detailed clauses are covered in this book. And it's a great primer for anybody, A, looking to even go into venture capital, and B, if you're looking to found a company, that is always, thinking about maybe having outside funding, you should get this book and read it before you go out and start raising, because there's so much that you need to know, and you need to be educated when you go out, because you're making a first impression on a lot of these people. And if you don't make a good first impression, they might not give you an opportunity for a second. Learn from others, tap into the community and network, and make sure that you have kind of your ducks in a row as far as the fundraise.
It feels to me like, especially in the Triangle area, the startup and, I guess you could say, investment kind of relationship it's very supportive. It doesn't seem like it's predatory, I guess is the word I'm looking for. It doesn't seem like it's, just transactional. Of course, it's business, but it does seem like it's supportive in a way that everybody wants everybody else to succeed along with them, not so much destroy competition next to each other.
Actually, that's probably a better third piece of advice, is what you're saying, which is find somebody who wants to invest in your company that is also a good partner and can add value in other ways, that isn't just cash and isn't transactional and doesn't push you to grow at all costs and run your business into the ground. You're really trying to find a good fit with an equity partner. And so you really should be interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you, and say no if you have to. If it's not the right fit, it's just going to get worse later on. So if you're not getting the right vibes from someone, just because they're willing to offer you cash doesn't mean that you should take it. So you have to be protective of your business too.
we've heard, other people describe the relationship kind of similar to a marriage, where whether it's a business partner or whether it's taking on investment money, you're strapped to that person, or regardless of the company and what the goal is, you're still going to have to build a relationship with that person and be able to work alongside with them. So you need to find someone that's supportive. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Someone
There's
that's
definitely a
actually
fit
genuinely
element.
interested in your success, not just what their return on that is. So,
Exactly. Exactly.
but it sounds like you guys just started, but still hitting the ground running. And do you see, I know we talked about how you feel the atmosphere in the area is, but do you see this upward motion continuing, at least in the communities that you're
I think
working in?
so. I think especially now and especially going into the spring of this next year, there are a lot more checkbooks getting opened. There are a
Good.
lot more angel investors coming out of the woodwork. One of the other things that I've done that I'm really proud of is in July, me and a group of 4 other women started a group called Lila, which stands for Ladies Investing Local Angels. And so what it
Nice.
is basically like an educational volunteer run group that try to get more women in the area interested and involved in angel investing and becoming, investors in funds, sitting on boards, and just increasing the diversity of all of the startups in the area. And so trying to get more women involved in advising roles and angel investor roles. And so that in particular is definitely increasing. We launched this kind of a soft launch with just like a networking event in July. We have a bias for action here, so we just kind of do things and then figure it out later. So we just made a networking event in July and we had a huge turnout. And now we have over 125 members already, and it's not even been 6 months. So I know there's a huge appetite in this area for people who want to get involved with startups, want to get more connected, and want to give back with both advice and capital. And so we're trying to foster that with just education and support, particularly for women, because that's who we are and that's what we know. Yeah. So that's what we're trying to promote. But there's definitely going to be another back to normal in 2025, I think, because with check writing, especially angel investors in the area, we have a lot of active angels here.
Now, we did recently interview another group of women founders of an investment firm that actually invest in women-run businesses. They're called Fierce Foundry. Have you heard of
Okay.
them?
I've
Yeah,
heard the
it's
name. I don't think I've
Elizabeth
yeah.
and Melissa. We had them on the show, but
Gotcha.
so to hear you mention that you're part of another group that's promoting women in business and women investors, that sounds really cool. It seems like that's a segment that's growing, and man, that'd be great to have a lot more diversity in the tech
Yeah.
industry. Because as much
Yeah.
as we try to incorporate, women into our group, it's hard to find a lot of women in roles for like senior development and stuff like that. But
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm hoping it grows.
It's hard to get into and it's hard to stay in, I think, sometimes. And I think we're just generally underrepresented in a lot of tech communities in all different sides, founders, tech leaders, investors, board members, everything. So just trying to promote women across the board in all areas of entrepreneurship.
That's awesome. If anybody wants to learn more about Primodial or about you, how can they reach out and get in touch? Where can they find you?
Sure. Just our website, primordial.io. If you do the contact information there or hello at Primordial, that goes to me. So it'll come to my inbox. I'll see it.
Are you guys on
Connect with
LinkedIn
me
as
there.
well?
We are. Yeah, we're on LinkedIn. You can also find me on LinkedIn. There's only, to my knowledge, 2 Jennifer Summes in the entire world. So I'm pretty easy to find.
Hi, I'm Christy Pronto, Content Marketing Director here at Big Pixel. Thank you for listening to this episode of the BizDev Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email, hello@thebigpixel.net.